Now, 4 convicted serial killers are currently looking to be released on parole. Between them, the 4 are responsible for the deaths of more than 100 people. Now, Stuart Wilken is looking to be freed after serving 25 years of his sentence. Cedric Marquet was given a life sentence for each of his 27 murders, and he also hopes to be released. Now, Nasrec serial killer Lazarus Mazingane was 27 years old in 2002 when he was convicted on 74 charges, and he too wants some freedom. Now, Christopher Zigote also murdered and raped about 18 people. Let's bring in the Correctional Services spokesperson, Singabakho Nxumalo, to speak to us about this. Mr. Nxumalo, thank you very much for your time. Maybe just let's start with the elephant in the room. Obviously, South Africans will become outraged if they find out that, serial killers or serial rapists are, applying again to be freed. What's the process? Just explain to us in terms of Correctional Services.
A very good afternoon. Thank you for having us. It's important to highlight that in terms of law, all inmates in South Africa are eligible to be considered for parole placement after serving the minimum required time. Being eligible does not guarantee that a person will be placed out, but you have to look at the correctional sentence plan and the journey that the inmate has traveled and put together everything. We call it a profile that must go through various processes. There are different regimes for people sentenced to a determined period and those sentenced to life. So the 4 people that you mentioned were sentenced to life, and not just life, multiple lifetimes. Hence, such profiles go through the case management committee will put it together. It goes through the parole board. From there, it goes to the National Council for Correctional Services and thereafter to the minister. And it's a very rigorous process, and all 4 have been considered more than once, twice, thrice, and those profiles have been sent back because there is more work that needs to be done with them because the risk is much higher. So the system is very rigorous, and it differs when it comes to the life or the term that has been given to an inmate by a court of law.
So how many times can a person apply for parole?
How it works is that an inmate will be considered for parole placement, and when that profile goes to, let's say, the parole board, if it's someone serving a determined period, meaning a specific number of years, the parole board will go through it, and if they look at it and they see that perhaps there is a need for other interventions, they will send it back and say, go back and undertake or do the following programs. After 6 months or a year or 2 years, that file can be brought back. The same process applies with lifers. The National Council for Correctional Services will make recommendations, and the minister will then decide. And the minister may say, go undertake the following programs, and after 12 months, you can then come back. So it's all about an inmate having served that time and having undergone necessary programs, and a person being deemed fit to be sent back to the community. Because if a person has been sentenced to life, it means the risk is much higher. Therefore, the rehabilitating that person, will therefore mean that you have passed through everything, and all assessments by our specialist must therefore concur to say it is now safe to send this person back into the community.
I imagine how difficult it can be with an inmate such as these ones that are now up for parole, who, for instance, have murdered or raped so many people, some of them so many years ago, and Correctional Services has to also find families of the victims to do victim impact reports, etc. So I imagine that this is not something that would happen overnight.
It does take time, and as I've said, even our specialists, will conduct various assessments, and National Council for Correctional Services may even recommend other interventions beyond what we may have as correctional services. Hence, at time we'll have to go outside, sourcing other specialists there to may come in and assist in case such recommendation has been made. It is something that does take time, but all that matters is that the system has done everything possible, and that the risk can be managed. It's all about that the risk can be managed and that the person has been rehabilitated fully. We've suffered a lot by placing people out who in no time committed offenses and must be brought back. So as a department, we really have to be very rigorous. Hence, the system from time to time is being reviewed to ensure that people that are being placed out are fully deserving of such an opportunity.
And I can imagine the balancing of it all, especially as Correctional Services. Your role is to rehabilitate even the worst criminal, if we could call it that, that society has shunned on, and at the same time understand society's reaction to the possibility of such a person being released. So just talk to me about the balance there, because I'm pretty sure if any of them are released, there'll be people who wonder if these people have really been rehabilitated, if they could kill and rape so many people.
Hence, it's important that processes such as the restorative justice, where we embark on victim-offender dialogue, where we even involved just members of the community to say, come closer, come and check what is it that we do as Correctional Services, the programs that inmates have attended, and before we place a person out, to say, this person has done the following, and has been assessed by various specialists, and the parole board has deemed it necessary that, we engage further. And from time to time, yes, we do find those hostilities, but the main mandate of Correctional Services is to rehabilitate people. And the measure to that is that once a person has been placed out, that person doesn't go back into the life of crime, and that person reintegrates successfully into the community. So when communities then stand up and say, we don't want these people here, then it defeats the entire purpose of corrections. Hence, as a department, we always go out there to people. We embark on public education campaigns to say there is a need to give people a second chance, but then it has to be people who are fully deserving, and it has to be people who can go out there and prove to those communities that they've been rehabilitated and that all that they will want to do is something positive, something that will uplift those communities. The state spends a lot of money rehabilitating inmates. It is therefore important that they're given a second chance, but as a department, we are also saying our systems have to be rigorous enough so that we manage the risk of placing people out there.
All right. Singabakho Nxumalo, the spokesperson of the National Correctional Services Department, thank you very much, sir, for your time here on eNCA.